I never thought I'd become the neighborhood rebel, but sometimes life forces you to act. My name's Ethan. Just call me a tree-loving engineer. And after 15 years as a structural engineer specializing in housing development, I thought I knew how to live by the rules. Then I moved to Desert Bloom Estates, a suburban desert community in Nevada, home to the region's most infamous HOA president, Linda Grayson, and learned that sometimes following the law means fighting the ones who claim to enforce it. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. When I bought this corner house, the seller told me the HOA here was strict about exteriors. Strict. That's like saying the Nevada desert is a little dry, or the Sierras are just a few small hills. I dreamed of a little front yard garden, maybe sunflowers or daisies, to remind me of the days my grandma taught me to plant in Texas. To me it wasn't just a hobby, it was a way to bring a bit of peaceful memory into this sun-scorched land. 3 days after moving in, I was still buried in boxes and trying to figure out which breaker controlled the garage lights when the doorbell rang. Not a gentle ding-dong, but 2 sharp, urgent knocks like someone demanding entry. I opened the door, hands still dusty, and there stood Linda Grayson, dressed in pristine white, wearing a pearl necklace that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her blonde bob was stiff, likely packed with enough hairspray to be a fire hazard. She tilted her head at me, hair unmoving, and said, "Hi there, I'm Linda Grayson, president of the Desert Bloom Estates HOA. I just wanted to personally welcome you to our little community." Linda's smile didn't reach her eyes as she thrust a 3-ring binder into my hands, its gold cover embossed with Desert Bloom community guidelines, glinting in the desert sun. "All 90 pages are mandatory," she said, her voice sweet but cold. "I suggest highlighting the sections on landscaping and exterior modifications. We've had issues with new people before." She emphasized issues like someone had tried turning their yard into a zoo or painting their walls neon green. I thanked her politely, thinking that'd be our only encounter. How naive I was. That night, unpacking kitchen boxes, I flipped through the binder. It was detailed to the point of absurdity. There was a list of 15 approved wall paint colors, all desert browns like desert dune or sandstone whisper, with specific codes. Plants couldn't exceed 12 inches, except native cacti, which could reach 6 feet if approved. Flowers had to be seasonal, with a community-appropriate color chart to avoid visual clutter. Trash cans could only be out from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on pickup day. Not a second off. I chuckled, picturing them with rulers and stopwatches inspecting every house. Still, I decided to play by the rules. As an engineer, I was used to designing things down to the millimeter. Linda might be a control freak, but I'd show her I could be the model resident. I envisioned a small, legal, beautiful garden in this arid desert, maybe a few approved flowers, measured precisely, kept neat. But I soon noticed her cruising the neighborhood in her shiny white SUV, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning for violations. Neighbors whispered about fines for petty things, like a plant pot an inch off or flowers blooming out of season. I told myself, stick to the rules, and I'd be fine. I didn't want trouble, just a quiet little corner in this dry Nevada desert. With 15 years of structural engineering experience, I knew how to read blueprints and follow codes to the letter, so I figured I could turn my front yard into a small garden without giving Linda any reason to meddle. How wrong I was, I'd only realize later. But back then, I naively thought precision would keep me safe. I spent my first few months at Desert Bloom Estates getting familiar with the 90-page Desert Bloom community guidelines. It was like a control freak's Bible, with everything spelled out in laughable detail. I flipped to the landscaping section and found the approved flowers list. Not too varied, but enough for me to pick favorites. Bright yellow sunflowers, pure white daisies, and soft purple lavender. The binder demanded a max height of 12 inches, at least 10 feet from the corner for safe visibility, and only community-appropriate colors. No loud reds or oranges. I measured carefully, set the beds 20 feet from the corner, used a tape measure and stakes to ensure not a millimeter was off. I didn't stop there. The binder required corner houses like mine to have front doors painted desert dune, a dull beige brown, so I bought the exact paint code and repainted it myself. Artificial turf had to be exactly 2 inches, no more no less, so I checked every square meter with a ruler. Trash cans had to be hidden behind a low wall, only out from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on pickup day. I even set an alarm to not miss a minute. I wanted everything perfect, leaving Linda no room to pounce. My garden took shape. I bought seedlings from an HOA-approved nursery, planted them on a cool afternoon, thinking of Grandma teaching me to till soil. When it was done, I stood back, small pretty flower beds in an empty desert yard, a nod to Texas summers. It wasn't just landscaping, it was my unwind spot after long desk days, a quiet pride in this rigid neighborhood. For the first 6 months, I stayed under Linda's radar. I'd see her in that shiny white SUV, clipboard in hand, stopping at someone's house to ticket them for a wrong-colored pot or early blooming flowers. But when she passed mine, she'd glance and drive on, no pause. I started feeling an odd pride in my compliance. I even read the monthly HOA newsletter, pages full of silly complaints like pot 1 inch off position, or lavender odor bothering the sidewalk. I smirked privately, thinking I'd dodged Linda's damn clipboard. I wasn't the only one noticing her. Neighbors whispered about absurd fines, like the old guy next door charged $25 for leaving his trash out 10 minutes late, or the young mom across the street forced to uproot flowers for being out of season. I told myself, as long as I followed the rules, Linda had no reason to bother me. My garden was exactly 12 inches tall, twice the required distance from the corner, all in community-appropriate colors. I started realizing this peace was temporary. Linda didn't just control, she loved it. I saw her standing at someone's house, pointing and yelling over a bush 0.5 inches too tall. I wondered if she carried a ruler in her purse, or just eyeballed it for an excuse to fine people. Still, I stuck to my plan, follow the rules, keep my little garden, live quietly. My small garden, sunflowers, daisies, and lavender, was my pride, planted legally, measured precisely, tended like a keepsake from gardening with Grandma. I thought I'd escaped Linda's damn clipboard, but it was just the calm before the storm. And that storm hit on a Tuesday afternoon, when I got home and saw a sight that made my heart stop. I pulled into my driveway, still tired from a long day at work, and there was Linda in my front yard, hands on hips, next to 2 landscapers with weed whackers. My garden, the one I'd sweated over, every plant exactly 12 inches, 20 feet from the corner, was now a barren patch of dirt littered with torn petals. The once vibrant sunflowers were uprooted. White daisies scattered like trash, and soft purple lavender hacked to a few limp stems. I parked so fast I nearly forgot the handbrake. Jumped out, blood boiling with every step. What the hell is going on here? I growled, trying to keep my voice steady though I wanted to scream. Linda turned, flashing that plastic smile, pushing expensive sunglasses onto her forehead. "Oh, you're back," she said, voice dripping with artificial sweetener. "Your garden violated Section 4.7-B, obstructing corner visibility. As president, I'm authorized to act when residents don't comply after notice." Notice? I never got any notice about this garden. I shot back, staring at the wreckage of $500 in seedlings and months of care. She waved a hand, pearls glinting in the desert sun, like swatting an annoying fly. "I sent an email last week to all residents," she said, her tone implying I was an idiot who couldn't read. "The board voted and approved emergency action for safety." She pointed to a small orange stake in the corner, something I'd swear wasn't there this morning, and said, "This is the visibility zone. You should have read the binder better." I wanted to punch that orange stake, but I held back. With 15 years as an engineer, I knew how to stay calm with difficult clients, and Linda was just a client sabotaging my project. "Linda," I said, voice firm, "the binder states in Section 2, Paragraph 3, that any direct board action requires written notice delivered to the resident, with a minimum 5-day correction period. A general email about safety concerns doesn't count as direct notice." Her eyes narrowed, that plastic smile twitching, the first crack in her polished facade. "I'm sorry you feel that way," she replied, voice rising to a shrill edge, "but it's done. The HOA will bill you $400 for this service." She handed cash to the landscapers, thanked them like she'd just done a good deed, and walked off, leaving me with the dirt and a rage boiling in my gut. I stared at the ruined garden, feeling like I'd lost a piece of Grandma's memory. Those flowers weren't just plants, they were my time, my small joy in this rigid neighborhood. Linda didn't just uproot them, she uprooted my patience. But I wasn't going to yell or smash anything. I'd learned from tense projects that losing your cool just makes you lose faster. I went inside, gripping the binder, determined to fight back. I couldn't sleep that night. The garden, sunflowers, daisies and lavender I'd planted to remember Grandma, had been turned into a barren patch over some flimsy visibility excuse. But I wasn't letting Linda win that easily. With 15 years of engineering experience, I knew how to turn setbacks into opportunities, and I'd do it within her own rules. I pored over the binder, reading every line like I was spotting flaws in a blueprint. Linda might think she'd crushed me, but I'd show her I wasn't a quitter. Then I found it, page 45, Section 6. Native plants like cacti can reach a maximum of 6 feet, provided the architectural committee approves, automatically granted if no response within 14 days. I held my breath, then smirked. Cacti, thorny, tough plants, Grandma once told me symbolized survival in the desert. If Linda hated my flowers, I'd plant a cactus forest right under her nose, legal and infuriating. This wasn't just rebellion. It was a statement. My flower garden was gentle, sweet. Cacti were different. Prickly, abrasive, untouchable. I remembered my Texas childhood, Grandma showing me how to pot bunny ears, cacti, saying they didn't need much water but outlived weeds. Now I'd turn my empty yard into a desert garden, per Linda's rules, so she couldn't touch it again. I started researching that night. I pulled out my laptop looking up Nevada native cacti, cute bunny ears, spiky barrels, and towering saguaros, the cowboy movie giants I'd loved as a kid. The binder allowed them up to 6 feet, as long as they didn't block corner visibility, and I knew my old garden was 20 feet from the corner, double the safety requirement. I took careful notes, remeasured distances on paper, calculated how many plants I'd need for a proper forest. My daughter, Sophie, 15 and more into biology than I was into plants, walked into the kitchen as I sketched. "What's got you so worked up, Dad?" she asked. Eyeing my scribbled papers, I told her about Linda trashing the garden, and her eyes lit up. "Plant cacti, Dad. They're so cool and perfect for the desert. I'll help you pick the best ones." She suggested adding small LED lights to make it pop at night. An idea not in the binder but not banned either. I laughed, feeling like I had an ally in this fight. The next morning, I called a nursery on Nevada's outskirts, one from the HOA's approved suppliers list. I asked about bunny ears, barrels, and saguaros, requesting quotes and ensuring they were under 6 feet to stay legal. The seller, an old guy with a raspy voice, chuckled over the phone. "What are you up to? Turning your yard into a cowboy movie?" I replied, "Close enough, but it's to annoy someone." He promised the plants would be ready in a few days. I double-checked the binder one last time. To plant cacti, I had to submit an approval request to the architectural committee, headed by Linda, and if they didn't respond in 14 days, it'd be auto-approved under Section 8.2. I drafted it immediately, specifying, native cactus planting project, max height 5 feet 10 inches, 20 feet from corner, per Section 45.6. I printed 3 copies, sent 1 via certified mail to the HOA office, kept 2 with the receipt as proof. I knew Linda wouldn't let it slide easily, but I was ready to play her game. Sitting there, staring at my empty yard, I pictured rows of prickly cacti rising up, replacing the trashed flowers. Linda might think she'd won, but I'd show her I didn't just comply. I could weaponize the rules. I smirked, imagining the day she'd drive by and see my cactus forest. After submitting my cactus planting request to the HOA office, I counted the days like an engineer tracking a project timeline. The Desert Bloom Community Guidelines stated clearly in Section 8.2, if the Architectural Committee, led by Linda Grayson, didn't respond within 14 days, my project would be automatically approved. I waited, checking the mailbox daily, but nothing came except pizza coupons. On day 15, I smirked, holding the certified mail receipt. Linda had missed her chance, and I had legal clearance to start. I called the nursery that morning. The raspy-voiced old guy had everything ready. 10 cute bunny ears cacti, 5 spiky barrel cacti, and 2 saguaros nearly 5 feet tall, all under the binder's 6-foot limit. I rented a small truck, and Sophie, my daughter, came along to pick them up. She was thrilled the whole way, cradling a bunny ears cactus, and saying, "Dad, this really looks like rabbit ears. Linda's gonna freak when she sees it." I laughed, thinking that was exactly the point. Not just planting, but planting irritation for Linda. We got home at noon, the Nevada desert sun scorching everything. I remeasured the front yard with a tape measure. 20 feet from the corner, double the safety requirement. Then Sophie and I started digging holes. Each cactus was placed precisely, per my sketch layout, like a mini engineering project. Sophie added her battery-powered LED lights around the bases, making the garden glow at night. I watched it come together, a cactus forest, not softly pretty like the old flowers, but defiantly, proudly beautiful. Less than an hour after I planted the final saguaro, tires screeched out front. I looked up to see Linda's shiny white SUV screech to a stop, door flying open before the engine cut off. She stormed out in a pink pantsuit, expensive heels sinking into the sand as she crossed my yard. Her face was flushed, arms flailing like a panicked traffic cop. "What do you think you're doing?" she shrieked, her shrill voice echoing through the neighborhood. "You're not allowed to plant this mess here. Stop now, or I'll call the police." I turned off the electric shovel I was holding, stepped down calmly, and grabbed a stack of papers. "Actually, I am allowed, Linda," I said, voice steady like I was explaining a blueprint to a client. "I submitted this cactus request 15 days ago. Per Section 8.2, If the committee doesn't respond in 14 days, it's auto-approved. I handed her a copy of the request, time-stamped clearly, with the certified mail receipt attached. It was delivered to the HOA office, and signed for by you. Want to see the receipt? Linda's face shifted from red to purple, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. This is ridiculous, she stammered, clutching the papers so hard they crumpled. I never saw this request. I shrugged, keeping my tone professional, though I was smirking inside. I've got the certified mail receipt, Linda. It was signed for by you, so if you didn't see it, maybe check your office. I gestured to the cactus row. Everything's legal, under 6 feet 20 feet from the corner, native plants from the approved list. Want to measure it yourself? Linda stood there, eyes blazing, clearly not used to being cornered. I heard giggles in the distance, some neighbors on their porches, pretending to water plants, but watching us. This isn't over, she hissed, her voice quieter but dripping with threat. I'll find a way to deal with this trash heap. She spun around, heels sinking deeper into the sand, then climbed into her SUV and sped off, leaving a cloud of dust. I watched her go, leaning on my shovel, feeling both satisfied and wary. Linda could rage all she wanted, but I had the paperwork proving it was legal. Sophie ran out, grinning. Did you see her face, Dad? I bet she'll come back with that clipboard. I nodded, knowing she was right. Linda wasn't the type to give up, but neither was I. The cactus row stood tall in my yard, a silent declaration of war. I knew she wasn't the type to let my cactus forest stand there challenging her authority. I was right. Just days after I finished planting the cacti, bunny ears, barrels and saguaros towering in my yard, Linda started her counterattacks, but I wasn't one to back down. With 15 years in engineering, I'd handled high-stakes situations, and this time, I wasn't fighting alone. Linda's first move came through the mail. One morning I opened my mailbox and found a violation notice from the HOA, printed on glaring yellow paper with her scrawled signature. It claimed my cacti posed a danger to children and pets due to their spines, demanding I remove them within 48 hours, or face a $50 daily fine. I snorted, most absurd excuse I'd ever heard. The binder didn't ban spines, and my cacti were 20 feet from the corner, well beyond safety requirements. I photographed the notice, printed section 45.6 on native plants, and sent a certified mail response. Project legally approved. Please cite specific violated clause. Linda didn't reply, but I knew she was plotting something bigger. Her second strike came faster than I expected. One afternoon, I got home to find a guy in a polo shirt out front with a measuring device. He introduced himself as a county building inspector, saying Linda reported my cacti for lacking permits. I calmly invited him in, showed him the HOA request, certified mail receipt, and a county native plant permit I'd secured beforehand. An engineer's advantage is knowing which papers to prep. He reviewed it, measured the distance from the cacti to the corner, and grinned. Gotta say you did a nice job. These are legal, safer than the county requires. He signed off, adding, rare to see someone this thorough. Linda's probably fuming. I smirked, picturing her face when she got his report. But Linda didn't stop. The next night, Sophie burst in shouting, Dad, someone's trying to uproot the plants. I grabbed a flashlight and rushed out, just catching a figure disappearing around the corner. One bunny ears cactus was dug up, roots exposed, but the security camera I'd installed after Linda's tantrum caught it. The footage was blurry, but I'd bet it was her. No one else in the neighborhood had time to vandalize plants at midnight. I replanted it, added wire around the base as a precaution, and decided it was time to stop defending and start attacking. I began recruiting allies. First was Evelyn, a 70-year-old 3 houses down, a former HOA accountant Linda had forced out. I knocked on her door one afternoon, bringing cookies Sophie baked to butter her up. She invited me in, brewed tea in her tidy little garden, and spilled. Linda ousted me 2 years ago for questioning odd invoices. Her brother-in-law's company got paid double to trim fake grass, but no receipts. She suspected Linda was skimming HOA funds, and when I told her about the cactus saga, she nodded. You're not the first she's targeted. I'll help you. Next was Ray Martinez, a 55-year-old ex-Marine across the street. I caught him fixing his car in his driveway, and after some small talk, he shared Linda fined me $100 for an illegal cactus 3 years ago. I removed it, but seeing you, I want in. Ray hated Linda for making him uproot his late wife's flowers, her last keepsake. When I mentioned the camera catching the vandal, he growled, "Let me catch him, I'll give him hell." That night, Evelyn, Ray and I met up. I laid out my plan to topple Linda, not just for my trashed flowers, but for everyone she'd bullied. Evelyn promised to dig through her old files, and Ray nodded. I'll ask around for others fed up with her. My cactus row wasn't just defiance anymore, it was a symbol of a bigger fight. Linda could retaliate, but I had a coalition, and I wouldn't let her win easily. With Evelyn and Ray Martinez backing me, I knew I wasn't just fighting for my yard anymore, but for the whole neighborhood. I poured everything into perfecting my cactus forest the next week, and each plant I put in the ground was a silent slap to Linda's face. I worked day and night to make it flawless. I ordered 5 more cacti from the nursery, 3 bunny ears and 2 barrels, to fill gaps from the vandalism. Sophie helped me dig, singing pop songs she loved, turning the dry desert yard into a cheerful spot. I double-checked every plant under 6 feet 20 feet from the corner, all native per the Desert Bloom community guidelines. I even bought white gravel from an HOA-approved store, spreading it around the bases so the garden was both legal and a desert art piece. Sophie didn't forget her LED idea. We added more small battery-powered lights around the bigger plants, testing them that night. The soft yellow glow lit up the near 5-foot saguaros, making them look like cowboy movie sentinels. "Dad, look at this," Sophie cheered, running around like a kid with a new toy. "Linda's gonna lose it." I laughed, thinking that was my prize. Not just the garden, but knowing it'd keep Linda up at night. I finished the cactus forest exactly 1 week after Linda's front yard meltdown. 22 plants total, bunny ears, barrels and saguaros, stood proud, spines bristling, daring anyone to come near. I added a small wooden sign out front, "Legal Desert Garden, compliant with Desert Bloom Guidelines, 45.6. It was my way of telling Linda she couldn't touch me, not when I played by her own rules. But Linda didn't vanish like I'd hoped. I caught her driving by in her shiny white SUV a few times, glaring through sunglasses, clipboard idle on the passenger seat. I knew she was hunting for a new angle, and I wasn't wrong. One night, an anonymous note slid under my door. "Remove that spiky mess, or there'll be consequences." Scrawled handwriting, but I'd bet it was Linda. Who else here cared enough to threaten over cacti? My camera didn't catch the drop-off, but I kept the note as evidence, just in case. Neighbors started noticing my garden. Evelyn stopped by one morning with a teapot, praising it. "You've done a fine job." Linda fined me for off-season's flowers once, but she won't dare touch this. I told her about the note, and she frowned. That's her style. "I'll check my old papers for anything we can use." Ray came too, grinning at the garden. "Looks like a damn cowboy flick. Linda made me rip out my wife's flowers years back. Let's see her try this." He added how she'd find a young mom for a pot left out past hours. The petty tyranny we'd all normalized. Then something unexpected happened. One afternoon, while I watered the cacti, not that they need much, but I enjoyed it, a rare mini-storm hit Desert Bloom Estates. Winds tore up the fake grass. Linda forced on everyone, leaving yards bare and dusty. But my cacti stood firm, not one budging. Neighbors watched from porches, a few clapping as I checked the garden post-storm. I smirked. Nature had just slapped Linda for me. That night, I stood admiring my cactus forest LEDs glowing under the moonlight. It wasn't just defiance anymore. It was the resilience Grandma taught me. Linda could strike back, but I had my garden, my camera and allies like Evelyn and Ray. I felt I wasn't just fighting for my yard, but for everyone she'd oppressed too long. But I knew this battle wasn't just about planting. Linda wasn't the type to surrender over some spines and LEDs. With Evelyn and Ray Martinez behind me, I decided not just to defend my garden, but to topple Linda's reign of terror in Desert Bloom Estates. The annual HOA meeting, where new leaders were elected, was coming up, a perfect chance, and I started prepping like an engineer planning my biggest project ever. I gathered Evelyn and Ray at my place one weekend night. Sophie mixed lemonade for us, whistling cheerfully like we were plotting a picnic, not a mini-revolution. Evelyn brought a box of old files, meeting minutes, invoices, notes from her HOA accountant days. Ray brought neighbor stories, baseless fines, unexplained fee hikes no one dared question. I slapped the Desert Bloom community guidelines on the table, saying, "We'll use Linda's own rules to take her down." Evelyn opened her box, pulling out a crumpled invoice from 3 years back. "Here," she said, pointing. "Linda's brother-in-law's company, Grayson Landscaping, got $35,000 to maintain fake grass. Market rate's about $15,000. I asked for detailed receipts. Linda called it trade secrets, and forced me out." I frowned, jotting it down. HOA bylaws required expenses over $5,000 to be public to residents. Linda had blatantly broken that. Ray chimed in. "She fined me $100 for a cactus once, then made us all buy overpriced shrubs from Grayson Landscaping." The young mom at number 12 got fined for a pot past hours, though the binder allows 24 hours to fix it. Linda never follows notice rules. I nodded, recalling my flower fiasco. No notice, no grace period, just weed whackers and a $400 bill. A pattern emerged. Linda wielded power for profit and control. I flipped through the binder, hunting clauses. Linda ignored. Section 2, paragraph 3. Direct board actions require written notice to residents, with a 5-day correction period. Linda never complied. Section 10.4. All HOA fund spending must be approved at open meetings. Evelyn confirmed big payments, like the $35,000, were never voted on. I listed violations like an engineering spec sheet. Abuse of power, no notices, shady spending. Each was a bullet to fire at Linda. We divvied up tasks. Evelyn dug through her files for more financial proof. She'd seen Linda move money to personal accounts, but lacked original receipts. Ray canvassed neighbors, collecting stories from those unfairly fined. He said at least a dozen would speak if someone led. I drafted a 20-page report with evidence. Evelyn's invoices, photos of improper fine notices, video from my camera of the vandal blurry, but suggestive of Linda. I printed 100 copies, cover titled with Sophie's idea, "Who do you want leading Desert Bloom?" Linda didn't sit still. One morning, a new notice was taped to my door. LED lights violate section 6.8, unapproved. I scoffed. The binder didn't ban lights, just required no hazards. I called Sophie, grabbed the tape measure. We measured lights 17 feet from the road, past the 15-foot safety mark. I snapped photos, sent a certified mail reply. LEDs comply with 6.8, no hazard, 17 feet from road. Linda didn't respond, but I knew she was seething. I finished the report a week before the meeting. Sophie helped bind it, joking, "Dad, if we win, let's plant flower in Cacti next." I laughed, nodding. Evelyn called, found another $25,000 payment to her brother-in-law. No details. "You can use it." Ray texted, 15 people ready to speak at the meeting. Linda's cornered. I stared at the report stack, feeling like an engineer who just nailed my most critical blueprint. Linda might be president, but I had the rules, proof, and the neighborhood behind me. The Desert Bloom Estates annual HOA meeting was the showdown I'd prepped for a month, and when the day came, I felt like an engineer entering my final build. Not a house, but toppling Linda Grayson. I arrived early, lugging 100 copies of our 20-page report, crafted with Evelyn and Ray Martinez. Sophie helped stack them, teasing, "Dad, stay cool when Linda starts yelling." I smiled, but I knew this wouldn't be a quiet night. The meeting room at the community center was more packed than I'd expected. Usually it's just a handful of people, but this time nearly 100 residents crammed onto plastic chairs, whispering as I handed out the reports. The cover bore Sophie's line, "Who do you want leading Desert Bloom?" Inside was everything we'd uncovered. Shady invoices from Linda's brother-in-law, illegal fine notices, video of the plant vandal, and Desert Bloom community guidelines clauses she'd broken. I stood at the back watching the crowd read, the sound of flipping pages like the tense prelude to a symphony. Linda walked in 15 minutes late, her blonde bob still stiff, wearing an expensive teal suit, but her face paled when she saw the crowd and the reports in their hands. She glared at me, eyes sparking, but tried to stay composed, stepping to the podium and tapping her gavel. "Meeting starting," she said, voice shaky. "We'll approve minutes first, then board elections." But before she could finish, Evelyn stood, her voice cutting through. "Before we proceed, I motion for a vote of no confidence in President Linda Grayson, based on HOA rule violations, financial abuse, and power misuse documented in the report we all just got." Over a dozen people shouted support instantly. Ray loudest of all. Linda gripped her gavel, face white as desert sand. This is completely out of order," she shrieked, her shrill voice bouncing off the walls. "We have an agenda. This report's just lies from a troublemaker, who won't follow standards." She pointed at me, hand trembling, but I stood there, arms crossed, giving a small smile like an engineer seeing a blueprint approved. Evelyn replied calmly, "Actually, Linda, Section 4 Paragraph 9 says, a no-confidence motion takes priority, if 10% of present members back it. We've passed that." She put on her glasses, scanning the room. Plus, everything in the reports backed up invoices, photos, video. As ex-treasurer, I confirm spending irregularities. "Can you explain the $35,000 to your brother-in-law?" The room went dead silent, then erupted in murmurs. Linda slammed her gavel, yelling, "This is slander. I've led this neighborhood perfectly for years." But Ray stood, voice like thunder. "Perfectly. You fined me $100 for a plant honoring my wife. You fined the mom at number 12 for a pot past hours. No chance to fix it. You trashed his garden." He pointed at me, with no legal notice. "That's your perfect." I stepped forward, binder in hand. "Linda," I said evenly, Section 2, Paragraph 3 requires written notice and a 5-day fixed period before action. You never did that for me, or anyone here. Section 10.4 demands public fund spending approval. Where's the vote for that $35,000 to your brother-in-law? We've got invoices, minutes you hid. I held up the report. Want the HOA lawyer to check. Linda turned to the HOA attorney, a middle-aged guy in the corner she'd brought to scare me. But he shrugged, saying, if the evidence holds, he's got a point. The cactus project's legally approved, and spending must be transparent. I'd advise the board to review. Linda's jaw dropped, face flushing red. But before she could argue, Evelyn called, let's vote. The vote was lightning fast. Of 97 present, 92 raised hands to oust Linda, 3 abstained. Only Linda and her next-door pal opposed. As the tally rang out, a few cheers broke from the back, quickly hushed, but enough to show what the neighborhood thought. Linda stood frozen at the podium, knuckles white on the gavel, her power crumbling before the neighbors she'd once lorded over. Ray stepped up, voice low, per bylaws. As vice president, I'm interim chair until a special election. First order, a 3-year financial audit committee. Second, cancel all pending fines for review. He looked at Linda, hand over the records and office keys. Linda whispered, you can't do this. But her mic was off, her words lost in the air. As people filed out, Linda blocked me at the door, face twisted with rage. You think you've won, huh? It's not over, she hissed. I shrugged, saying, I just followed the rules you gave me, Linda. Maybe you should try it sometime. I walked out, leaving her clutching her useless gavel. After the chaos of the HOA meeting, I stepped out of the community center feeling like I'd finished a marathon engineering project, not building a house, but tearing down Linda Grayson's reign of oppression. My cactus forest still stood tall in my yard, leads glowing softly under the desert moon, a reminder I hadn't just saved my garden. I'd brought some justice to Desert Bloom Estates, but I knew Linda wasn't the type to vanish quietly, so I savored the win while bracing for any last tricks. The next day, Sophie and I decided to make the garden even better. Dad, we won. Let's add flowering cacti. She cheered, dragging me to an HOA-approved nursery. We picked prickly pears with bright yellow blooms and pink chalas, all under 6 feet, fully legal. I let Sophie plant them, singing her pop songs as she worked, while I spread white gravel around the bases, turning the garden into a desert masterpiece. When done, I added LEDs to the new plants, testing them at night. The light hit the cactus flowers, making the whole street turn heads. Sophie grinned. Linda'd lose it if she saw this. My victory wasn't just the garden. Ray Martinez, now interim chair, moved fast like the ex-Marine he was. He set up an audit committee with Evelyn to dig into finances and voided all old fines, including Linda's nonsense, led one against me. One afternoon, he stopped by with a beer, asked around, everyone's thanking you. Linda scared them for years. Now they want to plant freely. I clinked my can with his, smiling. I just started it. Let him plant. I'll measure if they need. Ray nodded, saying he'd loosen rules, encourage native stuff like cacti. The neighborhood started shifting. The young mom at number 12 planted a little bunny ears out front, winking at me as I passed. The old guy next door tried some barrels, saying, no more fines for late pots. Slowly, Desert Bloom Estates shed its rigidity, gaining the desert soul I always thought it deserved. My cactus forest became a symbol, not just defiance, but the freedom Grandma taught me through tough plants. But Linda didn't let me rest long. One night, as Sophie and I sat on the porch admiring the garden, I heard rushed footsteps behind. I turned to see Linda charging up, blonde bob must, first time I'd seen her polish slip. Her face was red, finger jabbing an inch from my chest. You planned this, didn't you? Set me up to humiliate me. I sighed, more tired than triumphant. No, Linda, I said, voice steady like explaining a blueprint. You did this yourself. I just followed your rules. Every word. I pointed to the garden, fully compliant. Check it yourself. She snarled. It's not over. I'll make you regret this. No one makes a fool of me and gets away. But before I could reply, a voice cut in behind her. Evelyn stepped up, papers in hand, with Ray and another ex-board member beside her. I think it's over, Linda, Evelyn said, voice cold as iced tea. We just skimmed the records you left. Can you explain $25,000 to your personal account last month? Or why your brother-in-law got double market rate for 3 years? Linda's mouth opened and shut, face shifting from red to desert white. She stammered, but nothing came out. First time I'd seen Linda Grayson speechless. Ray stepped forward, voice low. County's investigating. They found $10,000 you spent on unapproved entryway decor. Pay back the money and a $6,000 fine, or face the cops. Linda turned, stumbling away, her arrogance gone. I watched, knowing she was done. Days later, word spread. Linda had to repay $35,000 to the HOA, pay fines, and left Desert Bloom Estates, quietly. Rumor was she sold her house to dodge deeper scrutiny. Ray held a special election, became official chair, and slashed the rules to a few pages from 90. Plant native stuff freely, he declared. Just don't block the road. I smirked, thinking the binder was now table liner material. One night after, I sat on the porch, Sophie sprawled beside me, gazing at the cactus forest under moonlight. LEDs glowed softly, prickly pear yellow blooms swaying in the desert breeze. You really won, Dad, Sophie said, voice proud. I nodded. Not just me, the whole neighborhood won. I thought of Grandma. She'd love this garden. Prickly, but beautiful. Like she taught me to live. Resilient, unbowed. Desert Bloom Estates was transformed. Neighbors planted cacti everywhere. Bunny ears, saguaros, chalas, turning the place into a vibrant desert patch. I didn't want to lead the HOA, just enjoy peace with my garden, and nights like this. But beating Linda wasn't just about the garden. It was a lesson from Grandma, from 15 years as an engineer. Rules can be weapons if you wield them right. I sipped my beer, watching Sophie sketch plans for new plants, thinking maybe next spring, I'd add a few more. The story HOA Karen trashed my flowers, so I planted a jungle of cacti. Instead, reflects real facets of life in the US. Today, especially in suburban neighborhoods where homeowners associations, HOAs are fixtures. In modern America, HOAs aim to maintain community standards, but sometimes become tools for people like Linda Grayson to abuse power and impose absurd rules. A scenario familiar from HOA dispute tales on platforms like Reddit. My shift from strict compliance, 12-inch flowers, desert dune door paint, to clever defiance, legal 6-foot cacti, highlights a truth. Americans today often grapple with balancing personal freedom and community regulations. The lesson here isn't just fighting injustice, it's using the system to protect your rights, a core US value, where law and process reign. I didn't rebel with violence. I used the HOA binder section 8.2, clause 45.6, and paperwork certified mail, receipts to beat Linda. It's a reminder that in today's America, knowing your rights, like property laws or local codes, is potent. Teaming with Evelyn and Ray mirrors the community spirit, as Americans often unite against unfairness, like anti-HOA movements. My advice: if you face a real-life Linda HOA boss or official, study the rules, keep proof like my camera footage, and find allies. Don't just get mad, turn anger into strategy, like I turned trashed flowers into an untouchable cactus jungle. Life in America rewards patience, smarts, and system savvy. Just how I freed Desert Bloom Estates from rigidity, one cactus at a time. If you enjoyed my battle with Linda via Cactus Jungle, and want more clever showdowns like this, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for sticking with me, and see you in the next video, where I'll spill if anyone dares mess with my plants again.